Praise the Lord. Welcome to this special episode of Mom Focus. We thank each one of you for your constant support and encouragement over the past few months and for your prayers for this ministry. Today is a special episode and we will be discussing the questions that we got about nurturing children and disciplining children from the past session.
We want to invite Dr. Alexander George again today. Uncle has graciously accepted our invitation and spared his time to answer all our questions. And as we promised you, we have collected all the questions that we received in the last session. We are going to have many questions, but we hope that these answers would help you personally. And as you parent your children, we pray that this will be a blessing to you. So we will now move on to the question and answers. The first question we have is, what should the parent do if children refuse to have a bath and cry often whenever bathing is even mentioned? How to discipline in the right way?
Well, this is a question that I experience even now. On occasion, I even do bath my grandchildren now, so I know what it means. Well, what my recommendation is that we finish all other tasks, become free to concentrate only on the bath, and we do not multitask. Women are generally good at multitasking, but if you are finding that your child is not very cooperative in bath time, it's good not to multitask. So ensure that you have all that you need, the oil, soap, towel, the change of dress, all at hand's reach. Ensure compliance, not by the rod, but by being able to ensure immediate obedience in a low, soft, and firm voice. Try to have the bath at approximately the same time every day. Talk lovingly to the child as you put oil on the head and massage the body. Fill water to a level that the child will not drown in a reasonably sized tub in the bathroom. And, if the child is sensitive to cold water, use warm water. Put a handful of warm water on the feet of the child and get feedback if it is fine for the child before the child steps into the tub. And let the child play with some toys. Even simple plastic bottles and cups would suffice. When putting soap, ensure that soap does not go into the eyes. If you have these swimming goggles, you can use them even to prevent soap going into the eyes. Put some song that the child enjoys in the cell phone. Do not pick up calls. Do not get distracted to other activity until the child is bathed, towel dried, and dressed up. So through this process, the child knows that mom means business and the bath will get done in a focused manner. So offer a reward if the child goes through the bathing process without being cranky, and give the reward immediately after the bath if the child has behaved well. So to sum it up, bath time should be fun time. And I'm sure you can make it that way if you really follow these suggestions.
Question number 2, is pinching advisable?
Pinching in general, I would say, is not advisable, but a small pinch may be used when you are in public and you want to alert the child that you're not happy with his or her behavior. By doing so, you actually safeguard the self-esteem of the child in public. But suppose the child chooses to react to your pinch in public by crying or by shouting, then it was his choice and you should not hesitate to reprimand the child. But it can happen that the child did not understand why he was pinched. So in that case, you must take the child away from the crowd and explain to the child what you were trying to communicate by the pinch.
Question 3. Can you explain again the conditions to consider before using the rod, like being sick, hungry, etc.?
Well, the child should not be sick, the child should not be hungry, and the child should not be sleepy. If such a thing is there, naturally the child will be cranky and has a tendency to cry. So that is not willful disobedience. Once you have ruled out the above conditions and are sure that the child's behavior is due to nothing else but merely willful disobedience, then you may warn the child sternly and use the rod if needed.
Question number 4. Even after bringing up a child in the fear of God, teaching the word, and him being obedient throughout till 10 years, if the son starts disobeying, what should be done?
Well, I don't know if you are insisting on too much, if you are trying to protect your own reputation by your child's or your son's behavior. Sometimes it is necessary just to give them the freedom just to be who they are. So I want you to examine if you have made any mistakes in bringing them up. We must remember that our children, after reaching the age of accountability, they are free moral agents. We can teach, set limits, discipline, and love them before God. But in the end, our children will make their own choices. We cannot be responsible for it. Our children are responsible for the choices that they make as they grow up. Therefore, do not take all the blame on yourself when your child makes wrong choices. At the same time, try to lovingly talk to him and advise him. Try to understand what influences are triggering him to behave the way he is behaving. Does he have peer pressure, or is his behavior a smoke screen for deeper unresolved issues? You must ask all these questions to process the whole matter.
Question number 5. My second son is 7 years and he always follows the elder one who is 10 years. He always wants to be with his brother. The elder one gets irritated because he's not able to do anything on his own or play alone. How to handle this?
Maybe one parent should try sitting with the 7-year-old when he is doing a task, and slowly, maybe in a few days, the other parent can lead the older son into another room. Consider buying a new fancy table and chair for your 7-year-old and keep that table in a different room from that in which your 7-year-old would be in. So you are providing 2 separate rooms for them, and you are giving the incentive of a new table for the younger son. Somewhere a sense of insecurity has crept into your younger son. So try putting to sleep the 2 sons in separate rooms, initially with one parent beside each son. Parents may need to pay more attention to the younger child and engage him in his own activities, find out what interests him and provide the initial help to do that. So basically, the younger child is seeking for more attention.
Question 6 and 7. We have two questions on the same topic. Do you advise homeschooling to protect kids from the influence of the world, or should we allow them to face it and take a stand right from day one? Would you recommend homeschooling? What are the positives and negatives of this system in your opinion?
Homeschooling has its pros and cons. I would recommend homeschooling only if, number one, the parents are willing to make the sacrifice and commitment that it requires. And number two, if there is a group of parents who are into it together, who can share their experiences and burdens. So if you are a group of parents who are going to enter into homeschooling together, that may not be a bad idea. But each family will have to take a call on this depending on how the Lord is leading them. My observation of some homeschooled children is that they have better reasoning skills and they are able to see things from the canvas of a larger perspective. Those are, very good things that I have seen in homeschooled children. However, their socialization skills may be at stake. My daughters, I have two daughters, they started off in a Hindu management school. Later, they studied in a government school. And for a few years, they were even in a Muslim management school. We never put them into a Christian management school. They were exposed to students of various religious backgrounds, and they came out unaffected in their faith position. So ultimately, our children will have to be exposed to the world in one form or the other. So it is important to teach and train them in the ways of the Lord, whether they be homeschooled or not.
Question 8. We are aware of Western culture regarding incentives. Regarding the jobs to earn money, is it not the responsibility of the child to do household chores? Why should we pay the child? Will this lead to misuse of money?
Yes, I understand your point. The money is a reward. It is given as an incentive. So as the child grows older, it should be possible to teach the child that household chores must be shared. Every time, we definitely should not give a reward. Rewards are special occasions to motivate the child. So we have to be discerning when we give rewards.
Question 9. My son is 5 years old. He shows anger when someone does something wrong and he notices it. He will question it directly and show high-level anger directly. Please advise as to how he can control it. How can we help him?
I think we must understand that anger is a God-given emotion. It is meant to destroy something that is wrong. God gets angry daily. That's what Psalms 7 verse 11 says. Jesus Christ was angry, Mark chapter 3 verse 5. So anger is not wrong in itself. Anger becomes wrong when it is occasioned for biblically improper reasons, example, pride or hurt feelings, or when righteous anger is expressed in the wrong way. So the child must be taught to express this anger and not to clamp up. Ephesians 4:26. The child must be allowed and taught to express the anger under control. The child must not blow up. Ephesians 4:31 and Proverbs 29:11. So the child's anger must be directed towards the issue in order to destroy the issue or to resolve the issue, rather than to the person. Ephesians 4:29. So we must teach our children anger management. We must teach and help our children to differentiate between the issue and the person, and help the child to express anger in the proper manner. So parents also should not react in anger immediately every time the child makes a mistake. The parent should examine his or her own anger and use wise discretion also in responding when the child becomes angry. We can actually lead the child through a few questions. So why are you angry? And what made you upset, and so on. So we must definitely teach our children to express anger in the right way and to the issue and not to the person.
Question 10. My son is 7 years old and feels shy most of the time in expressing his thoughts and denies them when asked for additional details. How to help him feel comfortable and make him understand that it's okay to express his thoughts?
It seems the child is suppressing the expression of his thoughts because sometime in the past, when he did express his thoughts freely, he was probably reprimanded or chided or made fun of, or he had, or that time when he did express his thought, some consequences which were discomforting to him occurred. So he needs a non-judgmental and safe atmosphere to feel free. You can gently probe him with questions. Maybe you need to teach him the various words that can be used to express various feelings. Teach the child how feeling low can be different from feeling stressed, or feeling angry can be different from feeling bitter, and so on. So we need to teach our children the right words for different feelings. And we need to give him confidence that he needs. And we also, I think it's important here for me to say, we need to improve our own listening skills. So that is also very important.
Question number 11. My child is 14 years old. She is always in a lazy mood and she doesn't manage time. How to train her?
Laziness can be a trait that may have been passed on from the parents. I'm not sure. But if it is so, if I think she must be allowed to face the natural consequences of being lazy and learn from that. Do not do for her what she ought to be able to do for herself. On the other hand, if she genuinely wants to be different, you can help her to use what I call a daily time use log. I teach about this when I take a session on time management. It is a very practical tool. Many of us would have used it in a more simplified form, but this particular tool has 3 columns: half an hour slots in the first column, proposed activity in the second column, and actual activity in the third column. So on the previous day, we write what we want to do for every half an hour of the time we are awake tomorrow until we go to sleep. We keep this paper, and next day we actually record what actually happened. Did what we had proposed happen? If not, what other thing happened? How did the time go waste? If you help the child to plan and record what happens every day, you will find she will be able to find out where time is being lost, where time is available. And if you can help your child to do this for maybe 21 days, I think you can make a lot of difference. So make sure that the parents are not lazy themselves. Sometimes laziness may be the signal of the onset of biochemical changes related to depression. That can happen at you mentioned your child is 14 years old, so that can happen at this age. So just be aware of that, and if that is the case, you may have to seek professional help.
Question number 12. Due to some personal issues and misunderstanding between me and my husband, we left our 6-month-old baby in my mother's house in South India, and we had to live in North India. Now she is 13 years old, but there is some gap between us, not able to be rectified. How to overcome this guilty conscience? Moreover, my husband, though he loves our daughter, does not touch her and express his love right from the beginning, so she feels deeply hurt, but tries not to show it. My husband is not changing. What should I do?
I think your daughter is feeling rejected. What has happened has happened. Now it is time for you to think of how you and she can work together to make the cross a crown and to convert the liabilities into assets. That's not going to be easy, but since you are the person, the mother is aware of the crisis, I think you can take the initiative. The daughter required love language was touch, but her father was not able to give that love language to her when she was smaller. And now it may not be appropriate for him to start doing so. So you and your daughter must learn more about love languages. And please note that your daughter has a deep need for love. And if you're not careful, she may seek for love in romance. So try to make arrangements so that the three of you can stay together as a family until the time comes when she actually has to leave home, maybe in marriage or for a job or something like that.
Question number 13. I feel I have wasted 12 years after listening to your message. Now my child is 12 years. During the pandemic, he is continuously playing games on the phone. If we do not give the phone, he doesn't allow me to work as we are working from home. What should we do?
I'm sorry that you're feeling that you wasted 12 years, because I believe that nothing is wasted in the economy of God. God overlooks the years of ignorance. The pandemic lockdown has been extremely hard for children, and your son is no exception. I myself lent my spare laptop to my 4-year-old granddaughter so as to keep her engaged for some time. If it is possible, you and your husband must try to work on different schedules so that at least one parent is available for the son. Make a rule and allow specific time for playing games on the phone. Make known that the phone will not be available outside that predetermined, agreed upon time slot. Try to understand what other interests he has and find other ways to engage him in things like reading, artwork, gardening, technical things, repairing old gadgets, music, etc. So I will be speaking more about social media and how to bring in controls and boundaries in part 2. So I hope you will be able to attend the subsequent session on April 18th also.
Question 14. My 10-year-old daughter doesn't show interest in reading Bible and prayer. I do not want to force her, but expect her interest in these. We as parents do these daily and she sees us every day. How to help her get interested?
You must find out what your daughter is interested in. We need to use several creative channels to spirituality: painting, craft work, embroidery, outdoor camping, cooking. These are all ways and means that we can work our way into her heart. So redesign your family devotional time to make it short. Maybe base it on a story of the Bible that can be enacted. End up maybe painting the key thought into an A4 size paper, bind those papers together every month, and in these and many other creative ways, we can make the study of the Bible interesting. But having tried such methods, you should also spend time with your child, making her understand the importance of the Bible to your own life. So sit with the child and read with her.
My daughter is 1.5 years old. How can we help her pick up good hobbies?
I think you are too concerned. Your 1.5 years is too early. So allow the child to try out different things as the child grows up: crafts, music, gardening, reading, games, carpentry, etc. And as the years go by, you and your child will be able to discern what he or she needs to concentrate on. Do not focus on too many hobbies. Select a few and try to focus on that. That would be better. But now it is definitely too early.
Disciplining in babies, can you explain? Disciplining in older kids, when spanking causes dissension with the other spouse.
I think the disciplining has already been explained in the talk, and according to each age. So the talk is available on YouTube in Mom Focus. So I recommend that you go back and listen to it again, but reach a consensus with your spouse before you begin implementing the agreed upon discipline policy. That is very, very important.
How to deal with a hyperactive boy who is 6 years?
As I've already mentioned in my talk, please seek professional help. But if you think professional help is not available, you can search Amazon and find books to how to deal with hyperactive children. When you search online, please read the reviews before you make the purchase. And also a lot of help is available in the internet too. So you must be able to get help from the internet if you are not able to get in touch with professionals who can help you out.
How can we handle worldly knowledge that goes directly against biblical teaching?
Romans chapter 12, verse 1 and 2, those verses urge us not to be conformed to this world, but to be transformed by the renewal of the mind. So we must allow for open discussion and tangential views. We must assist our children to evaluate different worldviews and knowledge inputs from the perspective of the scriptures. Sometimes we may even have to tweak our own perspective if we find that what we have been holding on to is not necessarily fully founded, and the Bible gives an openness to hold another view. Sometimes we may have to change our own view. So we must be open So just being adamant and strict about a viewpoint will not help the child.
I think that all babies and toddlers, boys and girls, find kitchen utensils the most attractive thing to play with. Does it necessarily have a gender thing associated with it? Maybe I misunderstood what you said, but please, can you clarify?
Yes, babies and toddlers, boys and girls alike, they enjoy playing with kitchen utensils, maybe because they see their parents jumbling with kitchen utensils every day. So in the early years, children tend to just be imitators. But as the children grow older, if you find that the boy is still keen on playing with dolls, and if you find that the girl is still keen on playing with guns, I think you may have to keep your eyes open on the possibility of some gender identity issues in the years to come. So just be conscious about that as the years go by.
You mentioned we can buy a toy gun for a boy. Is a gun, being a weapon used for destruction, a good toy to give?
Well, if you are a pacifist, I will not debate with you, but we do see the use of weapons in the Bible, God directing the Israelites to kill and destroy. In the New Testament also, we have been asked to put on the spiritual armor to fight the spiritual warfare. So weapons can be used to destroy something that is bad. But children should not run around the house shooting pellets at older people or siblings and end up hurting them. That should not be allowed. So parents can discuss and make a decision on what is to be given to the child as a toy and what is not to be given.
Some doctors suggest demand feeding for babies. Is this fine to do, or should we stick to the 2-hour feeding? Is this really important for the child's discipline?
Once we set the pattern, the child usually falls in line, and that can help the child early on to learn to control its urges, and can also free up the mom for other activities. So routines actually help the mother and the child equally. More important than the physical or biological impact, I believe it is the psychological impact that is important. This is what I value most. The child gets the message, mom is boss. In this world, I have to be subject to the powers that be. If we give in to the demand feeding method, the child gets the message, hey, I am the boss here, and the world revolves with me as its axis. So that is not the right message we want to give the child. 2-hour feeding actually enhances digestion and makes the baby hungry enough to take the next feed.
While explaining the gospel, you mentioned we should say you are a child of God because you believe. But as a toddler, the child may not believe anything. Then is it right to say this? Also, will it give the child a false assurance of salvation?
I understand your point, but this is the approach that I have used and that I recommend. You see, even after being a believer for many years, the Bible in 2 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 5, urges each one of us to examine whether we are in the faith or not. So I anticipate a similar process in the child at various stages of its spiritual growth. If a recommitment takes place at each stage, it will be only for the good. As the child grows older, we as parents have the responsibility to further clarify what that faith is and what is the sure foundation for the assurance of salvation. So that can come along in the years to come. But as of now, this is definitely the approach that I recommend.
What is the exact role that grandparents should play in the life of grandchildren? Psalm 78 says about children's children also.
Yes, grandparents have an important role to play in the emotional nurture of children. Grandparents can help to perceive their roots. Often grandparents have at their disposal the time to talk and listen to the little stories that kids have to say. Parents, on the other hand, are often very busy and have a time crunch. Grandparents can share their own life experiences and faith to their grandchildren. Their experiential knowledge is in fact way more than what the parents have, and their wisdom will surely benefit the grandchild. However, grandparents should not interfere with parental discipline. That is something that can happen. Grandparents may remind the parents of the warning that is given in Ephesians 4:6, that we should not, as parents, act in such a manner so as to exasperate or provoke our children into anger or rebellion. Sometimes grandparents come in between parents and the child and affect the effective administration of the disciplinary process, which is not appropriate.
This question is about leaving my daughter alone in a room for the night sleep. We make her pray before she sleeps. We all pray together, but she wakes up and says, "Mama, I had a bad dream," and she'll be crying. We had stopped making her watch cartoons with dragons and all. We watch movies only very rarely. We don't know whether it makes an effect on her. Can you help?
I think it's important for us to understand what dreams are and also to teach our children what dreams are. So dreams are the completion of unfinished thoughts of the conscious mind in the subconscious mind. I know that seems a little complicated, but I believe you will understand as I continue to explain. These dreams have nothing to do with the before bedtime prayer. Dreams are a reality of life. Young people and old people have dreams. So we must teach our children not to escalate dreams, but to discount them and to place them where they rightly belong. It is a mechanism of the subconscious mind to complete a thought of the conscious mind. So if the child wakes up after a scary dream, you may have to help the child go back to sleep. But after the child has gone to sleep, I think you should be able to get back to the master bedroom.
How to handle children who are extremely emotionally sensitive. A believing pediatrician recommended not to use cane for this child. Please share your inputs.
Well, I too had mentioned in my session that not all children require the cane. The cane should be used only for willful disobedience. As the child grows up, you will need to help the child deal and label his or her emotions. So you may have to help and encourage the child to process the emotions by asking why questions, so that you get to the root of the issue of why she or he is having these emotions. James Dobson has a book exclusively dealing on emotions. I hope you will be able to pick it up from Amazon or a bookstall.
How do I lead the child in faith if the father follows another religion and mother is a believer? As the father should lead the family, his influence is not Christian. How can the mother handle this situation?
It is not going to be easy, but I believe a wise and prayerful mother can still do this very well. While allowing the child the freedom to choose, you must make your transformed behavior communicate the gospel to your child. The child must see how you find greater purpose and meaning in life because of your personal relationship with Jesus Christ. Pray for the child constantly that God will bring him to salvation. Also use every opportunity as and when the mother can to introduce the gospel to him. In the Bible, we see the life of Timothy was greatly influenced by his mother and grandmother, while it is also stated that his father was a Greek. So God sees this as a possibility, and we have evidence for that in the New Testament.
When children start reading, other than Christian books, is there anything you would recommend for them to read?
I think the home library must have a good collection of books. And this should include carefully selected books that are not necessarily Christian books. For example, 2 books that I recently bought for my home library are The Hindu Way, an introduction to Hinduism by Shashi Tharoor. And another book was Becoming. The name of the book is Becoming, and it is authored by Michelle Obama. Now, of course, these 2 books are for adults, but the children's section can have books by Enid Blyton, and there's a huge variety of books there. The Bear Rabbit collection, the Famous 5, the Secret 7, etc. So children's versions of classics like Gulliver's Travels, The Christmas Carol, Tom Sawyer, The Three Musketeers, David Copperfield, Aesop's Fables, Panchatantra, Jakarta Tales, short stories by Ruskin Bond, all these can be part of our library. And we should also have children's atlases, encyclopedias, general knowledge books, quiz books, etc., so that children need not always depend on technology, but can actually have a hands-on reading experience. So it's good to have a good children's section in your library.
We are both working, so the child, who is 5.5 years old, is with grandparents during the day. I am unable to stop working due to our financial situation. Grandparents are not believers, so their speech and lifestyle are not exemplary. I am unable to tell them not to tell some things to the child or not to fight in front of her. In the evenings, they also watch cinema and serials. Our house is very small and I am unable to take her away from that room. I fear constantly that she is getting influenced by all these things. What can I practically do in such a situation?
What you are experiencing is the natural consequences of not following the divine design as given in Genesis 2:24, where it was commanded to man that man shall leave his father and cleave unto his wife. So it is not going to be possible to change how your grandparents talk or how they behave. It is not going to be possible for you to change their TV watching habits. So some strong decisions, tough decisions will have to be taken. You may be able to change the situation only when you actually move out into an independent house. You may have to scale down on your expenditure. In order to be able to do so, you may have to decide to live at a lower scale. But if you and your husband are not able to do this, I think you must find comfort in the fact that baby boy Samuel was not influenced by Eli's children. So I think you must be Hannah in prayer for your child. Gently teach your child how you and your husband operate on a different value system. You cannot overprotect your child in your given situation, but you must be more and more available to the child for conversations. You know, I have a friend close by who is a believer, and he is actually just a watchman at a hospital. His wife is a full-time homemaker. They have 3 children, and they have lived on a very low income. They have never taken a loan, and they have never had any unmet need in their lives. I have closely observed how they are able to live within a very small budget. So it is possible for you to take some tough decisions and change the situation.
My daughter is around 6 years old. She doesn't like me and my husband sitting together or him expressing his love to me. Even if we are talking or praying in the room, she comes in between and wants us to talk to her. She always wants to sit between us. Our house is small and in-laws are old and they stay with us. So there is no other room where we can put the child to sleep. So she sleeps with us. How to handle this situation?
I think a very important principle that we must remember is that children and work must never take priority over one's marriage partner. The marriage relationship is permanent, while the parent-child relationship is temporary. Very often we don't realize that. Yes, the child is always our child, but the child must leave father and mother, Genesis 2:24, and these truths must be taught to your child. You should not make your child feel insecure. At the same time, you may have to find time to be together and express love for one another while the child is asleep. You must try to move to an independent house close to where your old in-law live in order to bring about a change to your situation. So whenever you compromise on the divine design, I'm referring to Genesis 2:24, you will have to undergo the natural consequences of that compromise. The child must know that it can never succeed in trying to build a wedge between you and your husband. So this is also an opportunity to teach your daughter that one day she too will find her man and will leave dad and mom. In this situation, perhaps the child feels that she is not getting enough attention from the parents, and hence the child is behaving this way. So quality time should be spent with the child, and you must give her the feeling of security that she needs.
How do I handle a child who gives back answers for everything? He will obey, but argue and answer back first. What to do here?
If the child answers back, immediately sit him down and talk. Was there an element of truth in what the child said? If not, why did the child say so? Such aggression or frustration or such anger may only be smoke screens for deeper unresolved issues. So you as a parent must embrace the question, why? Why is the child behaving like this? If you made the mistake, you need to apologize. If the child comes to the realization that what he said was wrong, he needs to say sorry to you. So don't leave the issue unsettled until it has been resolved by either you or him saying sorry. But if he persistently continues to do this out of rebellion, then the cane will have to be employed. He has to be taught to honor and submit God-given authority.
We have two girls. One is 6 and the other 2.5 years old. We live in a village and the kids love to play with the other village kids. Most of the time, I don't allow them to do so because they may learn bad habits. The children get upset with me. How can I deal with this?
I think we must remember a few verses in the Gospel of John, chapter 17. John chapter 17, verse 18 says, Jesus Christ says that we have been sent into the world. Verse 16 says, but we are not to be of the world. So there is a balance of being in the world and yet not of the world. Verse 16 says that we are not to be of the world, just as Jesus Christ was not of the world. So this balance we have to learn, and our children will have to learn. We can never insulate our children from the world. As I mentioned in an earlier question, my two daughters studied either in a Hindu or Muslim management or a government school. They were never insulated in Christian convent schools. So we cannot insulate them. So what you can do is fix a time every day for the kids to go and play with the village children. And when they return, you and your husband must be fully available to listen to them as to what happened in the playground, who said what. If you find that some input which they received needs to be corrected, ask them lead questions that would enable them to cross-check the input that they received from their village friends with the biblical perspective. When you do this, you are actually teaching your children the skill of processing input from the world from a Bible-based perspective. And this habit will serve them very well when they go to college or when they live in the hostels.
Last night, my older daughter, who is 6 years old, was asking me about salvation. So I explained to her. She then told me that she prayed and told me that she accepted Christ. I'm not sure if it is true, as she is very young and she doesn't know even how to read. How can I know if it is a real confession of faith? If so, how can I make her grow spiritually?
Ultimately, only God knows if your child's confession is genuine or not. But in my view, you should consider that as a genuine confession of faith and build on it rather than cast doubt on her. Enable her to memorize verses like John chapter 5, verse 24, or 1 John 5, 11 and 12. Give her the confidence that she will go to be with Jesus Christ when she dies. Help her to understand that even though the penalty of her sin has been taken care of at the cross of Calvary, she will still have to struggle with the reality of sin in life as long as she is in this body. You can actually go on to teach her the basics of discipleship and so on. You can have a celebration at home because your child has entered into the kingdom of God. You can gift her with a new Bible with the date of her confession written on it. Later on in life, at a camp or a convention, your daughter may make yet another commitment. That is okay. We all grow in Christian life by such recommitments. And until we come to a time when we know that we don't have to recommit ourselves for salvation, but recommitments are definitely a part and parcel of spiritual growth. So this may be the first commitment. I think you should celebrate it anyway.
I strongly feel that after the birth of my second child, who's a girl, my first child, who's a boy, is having changes in his behavior. He was a well-behaved and well-organized child before. Now he is just the opposite. Why is that?
This often happens when the gap between the first two children is more than 2 years. In your case, I think it is further aggravated by the fact that your second child was a girl. You know, moms usually have more options to dress up a girl and to do her hair and so on than for boy kids. So the elder child, in this case, the son, gets the feeling that the second child is getting more attention than he did. So the older child's change in behavior is a means of seeking attention. You will have to be very intentional to ensure that your son gets your exclusive attention more often, and maybe your husband looks after your second child at those times. So it needs more work and intervention.
We have come to the end of this question and answer session. We hope this session was a blessing to you and you got all your questions answered. We really want to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Alexander George again. He's a much sought after mentor, counselor, and conference speaker. So, Uncle, you sparing your time to answer these questions is really appreciated. We thank you.
Thank you very much.
Let us remind you once again, we have our next Mom Focus meeting on the 18th of April, Sunday at 3 p.m. 18th April at 3 p.m. Dr. Alexander George will join us again on that day, and he will be speaking on parenting teenagers. So we invite you all moms and dads, welcome to the next Mom Focus session on 18th April. We hope the session and the coming sessions also would be a blessing to each one of you.